The medical bay on the Council security flagship was chaos. Doctors from a dozen species rushed between beds treating injuries from the Helion 7 incident. But the human section was different. The medical staff had learned quickly that treating humans meant accommodating their dogs. Park Ji-ho sat on a medical bed while a Chitauri doctor closed the cut above his eye with synthetic skin. Buddy lay across Ji-ho's lap, too large to comfortably fit but refusing to be anywhere else. The dog had a bandage around his ribs where the pirate had kicked him. Not broken, thankfully, just bruised. But Ji-ho kept his hand on Buddy's back, needing the contact as much as the dog did. "You should be resting," the doctor clicked, her mandibles moving in what might have been disapproval. "Your body underwent severe stress. You have 3 cracked ribs, multiple contusions, and you lost significant blood." "I'm fine," Ji-ho said. He wasn't fine. Everything hurt. But Buddy was alive and safe, and that meant Ji-ho could handle anything else. The doctor made a sound like a sigh and moved to the next bed. She had treated humans before but had never quite understood them. Now after Helion 7 she was beginning to. She had watched the security footage. Everyone had. Across the bay, Kang Mira was receiving treatment for a dislocated shoulder. Max sat on the floor beside her bed, his head resting on the edge of the mattress. When the doctor had tried to sedate Mira for the procedure, she had refused unless Max could stay in visual range. The doctor had agreed, and Mira had endured the painful manipulation of her joint while staring into Max's brown eyes, drawing strength from his presence. Choi Doyen had the least physical injuries, but the medical scan showed dangerously elevated stress hormones. Luna lay beside his bed, and Doyen's fingers were buried in her fur, his eyes closed. His breathing slowly returned to normal as the dog's calm presence worked better than any medication. Lee Hyun had shocked everyone, including himself. The gentle botanist had fought with a ferocity that left several pirates requiring serious medical care. Now he sat on his bed with Tofu in his lap, both of them shaking. A trauma counselor was trying to talk to him, but Hyun couldn't seem to form words. He just held Tofu and cried. Kelthos moved through the medical bay quietly, his neural implant still recording. But now he was documenting the aftermath. He watched the humans with their dogs, saw how the presence of the animals helped healing in ways that medicine couldn't quantify. He saw stressed humans calm when their dogs touched them. He saw pain ease when a dog licked a hand. He saw trauma begin to process when a human could bury their face in familiar fur. The data was overwhelming. Heart rates decreased by an average of 20% when dogs were present. Cortisol levels dropped. Pain medication requirements reduced. Recovery times shortened. The dogs were somehow accelerating healing through their mere presence. But more importantly, Kelthos saw something else. He saw humans who had endured capture, violence, and mortal danger refuse to rest until they knew their dogs were safe. He saw priorities that made no logical sense but somehow felt profoundly right. Commander Thelos entered the medical bay. The Vraxian commander, who had mocked humanity's attachment to dogs during first contact, now walked slowly between the beds, his scaled face unreadable. He stopped at Ji-ho's bedside. "Ambassador Park," Thelos said formally. "I owe you an apology." Ji-ho looked up, surprised. "Commander? I called you primitive. I said your bond with your animal showed poor judgment and emotional instability." Thelos looked down at Buddy, who was watching the commander with calm eyes. "I was wrong. I have watched the security footage 17 times. I have read Kelthos's reports. I am beginning to understand what I could not see before." "And what's that?" Ji-ho asked. "Your species weaponized loyalty," Thelos said quietly. "Not through genetics or training, but through love. You took a predator species and made them family. In return, they gave you their complete devotion. And that devotion makes both of you stronger than either could be alone." Ji-ho scratched behind Buddy's ears. "We don't think of it as a weapon. It's just how we live." "Which makes it all the more remarkable," Thelos replied. "A weapon you don't even recognize as such. A bond so deep it overrides survival instinct. I watched you fight past your injuries, ignore your pain, risk your life without hesitation. For this animal. His name is Buddy," Ji-ho said firmly. "And he's not an animal. He's family." Thelos was silent for a moment. Then, carefully, he extended one clawed hand toward Buddy. The dog sniffed it cautiously, then his tail began to wag. "May I?" Thelos asked. "Buddy, friend," Ji-ho said. The dog's tail wagged harder. Thelos gently touched Buddy's head. his scales rough against the soft fur. Buddy leaned into the touch, accepting the gesture. The commander's expression shifted, something like wonder crossing his face. Kelthos tried to explain this feeling to me, Thalos said. The warmth, the connection. I did not believe him. I thought perhaps young Kelthos was being overly emotional. But I feel it now. Something that cannot be measured or quantified. Something that simply is. Across the medical bay, other alien personnel were watching. Some with curiosity, some with lingering skepticism, but many with new understanding. Word of Helion 7 was spreading through the fleet. The security footage was being analyzed at the highest levels of the Galactic Council. Kelthos found himself in demand. Every species wanted to see his recordings, read his reports, understand what had happened. He had documented something unprecedented. Not just humans fighting, but humans and dogs fighting together with a coordination that suggested a bond deeper than training or conditioning. How do they do it? Asked a Kryn scientist watching footage of Doyen and Luna moving in perfect sync. There is no verbal communication, no hand signals, yet they anticipate each other's actions with 97% accuracy. They understand each other, Kelthos explained. Thousands of years of coevolution created something unique. Dogs learned to read human body language, facial expressions, even emotional states. Humans learned to interpret dog behavior with equal precision. They are two species that chose to become one family. But the violence, another scientist objected. The humans fought with such ferocity. They sustained injuries that should have incapacitated them. How? Because their dogs were threatened, Kelthos said simply. You still do not understand. Those dogs are not possessions, not servants. They are loved ones. Imagine if someone threatened your offspring, your bonded mate. Would you not fight beyond your limits to protect them? The scientists fell silent. Some of them had families. They understood that concept. But extending it to another species, to a creature that could not speak your language or share your culture, that was still difficult to grasp. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Supreme Chancellor Orpheus convened an emergency council session. The Helion 7 incident had shocked the galaxy. Humans, considered relatively weak physically and emotionally unstable due to their attachments, had defeated armed pirates with minimal weapons and no military training. The footage showed impossibilities made real through determination and loyalty. We must address this, Orpheus announced to the assembled delegates. We have underestimated humanity. More importantly, we have misunderstood them. The bond between humans and their companion animals is not a weakness. It is a strength unlike anything we have encountered. They are dangerous, one delegate argued. Did you see the violence? One of them, a botanist who works with plants, injured 3 pirates severely. These creatures have a capacity for violence that contradicts their peaceful nature. Only when their companions are threatened, Kelthos interjected. He had been invited to speak to the council, his research suddenly invaluable. I have observed dozens of humans across months of study. They are peaceful, cooperative, diplomatic, until you threaten what they love. Then they become something else. Monsters, someone whispered. Protectors, Kelthos corrected. There is a difference. Monsters attack without cause. Humans defended their family members. That is not the same thing. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to restrict human access to council space, fearing their unpredictable emotional responses. Others argued that humanity's capacity for loyalty was exactly what the council needed in these dangerous times. If humans would fight that hard for a dog, imagine what they would do for their allies. Finally, Orpheus called for silence. I propose a new understanding. We recognize the bond between humans and their companion animals. We grant these animals the same protections we grant sentient beings, and we acknowledge that threatening a human's companion animal is equivalent to threatening the human directly. That is absurd, Commander Thalos said. Then he paused. No, actually, it is logical. I withdraw my objection. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council officially recognized human companion animals as protected beings. More than that, they recognized the human-dog bond as something worth studying, understanding, and perhaps even emulating. Back in the medical bay, Jiho was finally allowed to sleep. Buddy curled up beside him on the narrow bed, too large to fit properly, but neither of them caring. As Jiho drifted off, one hand resting on Buddy's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of the dog's breathing, he smiled. The galaxy was beginning to understand. It had taken blood and fear and violence, but now they saw what humans had known for 30,000 years. The cargo bay had become a battlefield. Alarm klaxons wailed. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Smoke from damaged equipment hung in the air like fog. And through it all, humans and dogs fought together with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. Jiho had the shock stick now. The pirate he had attacked lay unconscious on the floor. Blood ran from a cut above Jiho's eye, but he didn't seem to notice. Buddy stayed close to his left side, just like always, but the dog's friendly demeanor was gone. His lips were pulled back, showing teeth, and a deep growl rumbled in his chest. "Buddy, heel," Jiho said softly, and the dog moved instantly to the exact position. They advanced on the next pirate together. The Dryvac raised his weapon, but Buddy was faster. The dog lunged for the pirate's weapon arm, his jaws clamping down on the unarmored joint. The pirate screamed and dropped his gun. Jiho caught it before it hit the ground. 2 cells over, Mira had freed herself and was working on the other cell's control panels. Max stood guard beside her, his attention divided between his owner and the approaching threats. When a pirate rounded the corner, Max barked once, a sharp warning bark. Mira dropped flat without hesitation, and the energy blast meant for her head sailed overhead. Max didn't attack this time. He didn't need to. His bark had given Mira the split-second warning she needed. That was enough. Doyen had found a maintenance kit and was jury-rigging weapons from mining equipment. Luna sat beside him, her intelligent eyes watching his hands work. When he needed a specific tool, he would point, and somehow Luna knew which one. She would grab it in her mouth and bring it to him. The other hostages watched in amazement as human and dog worked in perfect synchronization. "How does it know what you need?" asked one of the Kryn workers. Doyen didn't look up from his work. "She doesn't know. She trusts me. I point, she brings. We've done this for years." He finished connecting 2 power cells to a plasma cutter and handed the makeshift weapon to the Kryn. "Here. Defense only. We're trying to survive, not murder anyone." Hyun had Tofu tucked safely in a storage locker with the other non-combatants. The little dog had howled when Hyun closed the door, but the botanist couldn't risk Tofu getting hurt. Now Hyun was using his knowledge of the colony's layout to guide hostages through maintenance tunnels toward the emergency shuttles. "This way," he urged a group of terrified miners. "Stay quiet. Stay low." But the pirates had noticed the escape attempt. 3 of them blocked the tunnel ahead. They raised their weapons with cruel confidence. The hostages stopped, trapped. Hyun felt fear freeze his blood. He wasn't a fighter. He studied plants. He had attacked earlier in a moment of rage, but that had been pure adrenaline. Now, facing armed pirates in a narrow tunnel, he had no idea what to do. Then he heard it. A bark, small but fierce. Impossibly, Tofu had escaped the locker. The little mixed breed came running down the tunnel. All 15 pounds of fury and loyalty. The dog placed himself between Hyun and the pirates, barking frantically. Something inside Hyun switched off. Or maybe it switched on. He stopped thinking. Stopped calculating. Stopped being afraid. There was only one thought in his mind. Protect Tofu. Nothing else mattered. He charged. The pirates were so shocked by the small dog's aggression and the human's suicidal attack that they hesitated for half a second. That was all Hyun needed. He grabbed the first pirate's weapon and twisted it upward. The blast went into the ceiling. His knee found the pirate's midsection. Years of gentle research work had made people forget that Hyun had played rugby in university. His body remembered. The second pirate tried to shoot, but Tofu bit his ankle. The pirate yelped and stumbled. Hyun swept his legs out from under him. The third pirate actually ran, unwilling to face whatever madness had possessed the human. Kelthos recorded everything. His implant captured every moment in perfect detail. He saw the way Buddy anticipated Jiho's movements, positioning himself to cover blind spots. He saw Max and Mira communicate with nothing but glances, the dog understanding complex tactical situations without a word being spoken. He saw Luna solving problems alongside Doyen, her actions complementing his perfectly. But more than that, he saw the change in the humans themselves. They fought beyond their injuries. They ignored pain that should have incapacitated them. They coordinated without speaking, moving like parts of a larger organism, and always they positioned themselves to protect their dogs first. It was illogical. It defied self-preservation instinct. A rational being would abandon the animal to save themselves. But humans weren't being rational. They were being loyal. and that loyalty made them terrifying. Scraw finally understood his mistake. He had thought humans were soft, emotional, weak. He had thought taking their pets would make them easier to control. Instead, it had turned them into something far more dangerous than soldiers. It had made them desperate. "Fall back," he ordered his remaining crew. "To the ships, move!" But Jiho was already between them and their escape route. Buddy at his side, shock stick in hand, blood streaming down his face. The human ambassador looked like something from a nightmare. His eyes held no mercy. "You wanted to hurt my dog," Jiho said. His voice was still calm, still matter of fact. That made it worse somehow. "I told you what would happen." Scraw raised his weapon. Jiho didn't flinch. Buddy growled, a sound that seemed too large for his body. For a moment, nobody moved. The pirate captain had killed dozens of beings across his career. He had faced soldiers and mercenaries and monsters, but something about the human and his dog made him hesitate. Then Mira appeared from the side corridor, Max beside her. Doyun emerged from another tunnel, Luna at his heels. Hyun came from behind, carrying Tofu in one arm and a plasma torch in the other. The humans surrounded the pirates, and their dog stood with them, united in purpose. "Galactic Council security will be here in minutes," Mira said. "You have two choices. Surrender now, or we end this ourselves." "You're bluffing," Scraw hissed. "You're not killers. You're diplomats, traitors." "We're humans," Jiho corrected. "And you threatened our dogs. That was your last mistake." The sound of Buddy's growl mixed with Max's deeper rumble, Luna's sharp barks, and Tofu's high-pitched yapping. It should have been ridiculous. 4 dogs and 4 humans against a dozen armed pirates. By all logic, the pirates should have won easily. But logic had left this battle the moment the pirates decided dogs were expendable. Scraw looked into Jiho's eyes and saw something that made his decision for him. He saw absolute commitment. He saw someone who had nothing left to lose because the thing he loved most had been threatened. He saw death looking back at him. "We surrender," Scraw said, dropping his weapon. His crew followed suit, their weapons clattering to the floor. Kelthos approached slowly, his neural implant still recording. He looked at Jiho, who was now checking Buddy for injuries with shaking hands. The violence was over and the human was crying, his tears falling into the dog's golden fur. "You're hurt," Kelthos observed. "You need medical attention." "Buddy first," Jiho said. "Check Buddy first." He got kicked. His ribs might be broken. Kelthos looked at the human's obvious injuries, the blood, the bruises forming, the way he was favoring his left side. Then he looked at the dog, who was licking Jiho's face and wagging his tail, seemingly fine despite the earlier kick. "Your species is insane," Kelthos said softly. Jiho smiled through his tears. "Maybe, but Buddy's okay. That's what matters." In that moment, Kelthos finally understood. It wasn't about logic or efficiency or survival advantage. It was about love. Simple, pure, unconditional love between 2 species that had chosen each other thousands of years ago and never looked back. And that love made humans capable of extraordinary things. Outside the colony, Council security ships were arriving. Medical teams would soon pour through the corridors. The hostages would be rescued officially. The pirates would face justice, but the battle was already over. Won not by superior weapons or tactics, but by something far more powerful. Won by the bond between humans and their dogs. A bond that could not be broken by force or logic or threats. A bond that made humans, when pushed far enough, absolutely unstoppable. The diplomatic mission to Helion 7 was supposed to be routine. The mining colony needed new trade agreements, and the Council had sent a delegation to negotiate terms. Park Jiho was there representing Earth's interests. Kang Mira came to establish supply chains. Choi Doyen was consulting on the colony's failing life support systems. Lee Hyun was studying the strange fungi growing in the colony's lower levels. Buddy, Max, Luna, and Tofu were there too, of course. The dogs had become a normal sight at Council functions, though many aliens still gave them wary looks. Kelthos had volunteered for the mission specifically to continue his observations. He had filled 3 data archives with notes on human-canine interactions and was hungry for more. The colony itself was unremarkable. A collection of prefabricated structures built into an asteroid's surface, housing about 200 workers from a dozen different species. The mine produced rare metals used in jump drive construction, important but not glamorous. Everything went wrong on the 3rd day. The attack came without warning. Dravak pirates had been watching the colony, waiting for the council delegation to arrive. They knew that hostages from the council would bring a much higher ransom than simple miners. The pirates' ships appeared out of nowhere, their stealth technology far more advanced than anyone expected. Alarms blared through the colony. Blast doors slammed shut, but it was too late. The pirates had already infiltrated the main complex through the mining tunnels. Within minutes, they had rounded up the delegation and most of the colony workers. Jiho felt someone grab him from behind, rough hands yanking his arms back. Beside him, Buddy barked furiously, teeth bared. The dog lunged at the pirate holding Jiho, but another pirate kicked Buddy hard in the ribs. The dog yelped and fell. Something cold and deadly settled in Jiho's chest. He stopped struggling, his eyes fixed on Buddy. The dog was getting up, limping but still ready to fight. "Buddy, stay," Jiho commanded, his voice tight. "Stay." Buddy whined but obeyed, though every muscle in his body was tense. The pirates herded them all into the colony's cargo bay, which had been converted into a makeshift prison. Force fields divided the space into cells. The pirates threw the hostages inside roughly, laughing at their fear. Jiho was shoved into a cell with Buddy, Kelthos, and 2 Kryn workers. In the next cell, Mira held Max close. The German shepherd was growling low in his throat, his hackles raised. Across the way, Doyun had Luna and Hyun had Tofu. The dogs were all agitated, sensing their owner's fear and the danger around them. The pirate captain, a massive Dravak named Skra, stood in the center of the cargo bay. His chitinous armor gleamed under the harsh lights. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together menacingly. "Comfortable?" he asked. His voice translated into mocking tones. "Good. You will be our guests until the council pays us what you are worth. 50 million credits per delegate. The workers are free." "The council doesn't negotiate with terrorists," Jiho said quietly. Skra turned to face him. "Then I hope you said goodbye to your loved ones." He looked down at Buddy, his expression unreadable behind his insectoid features. "What is this thing?" "My dog," Jiho said. "Leave him alone." "A pet?" Skra laughed, a horrible chittering sound. "You brought a pet to a diplomatic mission? Humans truly are as stupid as they say." He stepped closer to Jiho's cell. "Maybe we send pieces of your pet to the council first, to show we are serious." "Touch him and I'll kill you," Jiho said. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact, as if he were commenting on the weather. Skra found this hilarious. His laughter echoed through the cargo bay. "You will kill me? You are in a cell, human. You are my prisoner. You will do nothing." The other pirates joined in the laughter. They had taken dozens of hostages across 3 star systems. They knew how this worked. The hostages would be scared. They would beg. Eventually, someone would pay and the pirates would disappear back into the void. It was routine, but Kelthos was watching Jiho's face, and what he saw there made his scales prickle with instinctive fear. The human's expression hadn't changed. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was simply stating a fact. If the pirates touched Buddy, Jiho would kill them. The certainty was absolute. Kelthos looked at the other humans. Mira had her arms around Max, whispering to him. But her eyes were tracking every pirate's movement, cataloging their weapons and positions. Doyen was scratching Luna's ears, but his gaze was fixed on the force field controls. Hyun looked terrified, but he kept placing himself between Tofu and the pirates, his body language screaming protection. Something was happening, something the pirates didn't understand yet. Skra grew bored with Jiho's defiance. He turned to one of his subordinates. "Bring me that animal. I want to show these soft species what happens when they bring useless creatures to important places." The subordinate deactivated the force field on Jiho's cell and stepped inside. He reached for Buddy. The dog didn't bark or growl. He simply moved, faster than the pirate expected, placing himself between the threat and Jiho. The pirate laughed and drew a shock stick. "Stupid animal, move." Buddy didn't move. The pirate raised the shock stick. In that instant, several things happened simultaneously. Jiho lunged forward faster than any human should move while injured from the initial capture. The Kryn workers threw themselves aside, and Buddy, with perfect timing, ducked low. The shock stick missed the dog and hit the force field generator instead. Sparks flew. The field flickered. Jiho crashed into the pirate with his full body weight, driving him backward through the malfunctioning field. They hit the ground hard, and Jiho's hands found the pirate's throat. The human had no weapons, no armor, but his grip was like iron. "I told you," Jiho said quietly. "I told you not to touch my dog." Everything erupted into chaos. The sound of Luna barking came from across the bay, sharp and urgent. It was a specific bark, one that Doyen recognized instantly. "Warning, danger behind you." He spun just as a pirate opened his cell to restore order, and Doyen was ready. Years of martial arts training, rarely used in the peaceful council space, came flooding back. Mira saw her opportunity when a pirate ran past her cell to help his companions. She whispered a single word to Max. "Guard." The German Shepherd's training activated like a switch. When the pirate returned minutes later and opened the cell to threaten Mira, Max was waiting. 80 pounds of muscle and loyalty and protective instinct hit the pirate like a missile. Hyun surprised everyone, including himself. The gentle botanist who spent his days with plants watched a pirate kick at Tofu's cage, and something broke inside him. When the pirate stumbled too close, Hyun grabbed him through the force field's gap and slammed his face into the energy barrier again and again, screaming incoherently. The pirates had expected fear. They had expected pleading. They had weapons and armor and numerical advantage. But they had never fought humans protecting their dogs before. They didn't understand what they were facing. Kelthos watched it all with his neural implant recording. He saw Jiho fight with a fury that defied his injuries. He saw Mira coordinate with Max using nothing but hand signals and eye contact. He saw Doyen and Luna move like one entity, the dog herding hostages to safety while the human disabled weapons. He saw something that would change the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. These weren't soldiers. They were an ambassador, a trader, an engineer, and a botanist. Ordinary humans with ordinary jobs. But threaten their dogs and they became something else entirely. They became unstoppable. 3 months had passed since the Council granted humanity provisional membership. The decision had been controversial, but the humans had brought valuable technology and resources to the table. The Council decided that the benefits outweighed their concerns about humanity's strange emotional attachments to predatory animals. Now, humans were arriving at stations and colonies throughout Council space, and many of them brought their dogs. Kang Mira stepped off the transport ship at Trade Station Alpha with Max at her side. The German Shepherd was larger than Buddy, with black and tan fur that gleamed under the station's artificial lighting. He wore a vest marked with human symbols that the translator rendered as service animal. The station master, a floating blob of gelatinous material named Vorex, quivered with what might have been anxiety. "Trade Specialist Kang, I must inform you that several merchants have expressed concerns about your companion animal. They fear it may be dangerous." Mira looked down at Max, who was calmly sitting beside her, his eyes scanning the crowd with professional alertness. "Max is a trained service dog. He helps me with my anxiety disorder. He's never bitten anyone in his life unless I was in actual danger. That is precisely what concerns them," Vorex replied. "The potential for violence," Mira sighed. She had known this would be difficult. "Station Master, Max is certified by Earth's International Service Animal Organization. He's traveled through 14 star systems with me. He's met over 40 different species. The only time he's ever shown aggression was when a drunk Dravak tried to grab me in a bar on Kepler 442b. And even then, he only barked and positioned himself between us." "I see." Vorex pulsated thoughtfully. "Very well. But please keep the animal close to you at all times." "He never leaves my side," Mira said softly, running her hand through Max's fur. "That's the point." Across the station, in the engineering section, Choi Do-yoon was having a similar conversation with his supervisor. The supervisor was a Kryn named Circuit, more machine than organic being, who was examining Luna with obvious confusion. Luna was a border collie, smaller than Max, but incredibly alert. Her black and white coat was perfectly groomed, and her intelligent eyes seemed to track every movement in the engineering bay. She lay quietly next to Doyen's workstation, but her ears swiveled constantly, monitoring everything. "Engineer Choi," Circuit said in its flat mechanical voice, "I fail to understand why you brought this organism to a workspace. It serves no function in spacecraft maintenance." Doyen didn't look up from the panel he was repairing. "Luna helps me focus. She's calming, and she's smart enough to stay out of the way." "Calming," Circuit repeated, as if testing the word. "This is an emotional state. Emotions reduce efficiency. For you, maybe," Doyen said. He finally looked up at his supervisor. For humans, managing our emotions increases efficiency. When I'm stressed, I make mistakes. Luna reduces my stress. Therefore, Luna helps me work better. It's logical. Circuit processed this for several seconds. I will observe this claim. If your error rate increases with the animal present, it must be removed. Deal, Doyen said. He reached down and scratched Luna behind the ears without looking. The dog's tail thumped twice against the floor. Circuit observed this interaction with its optical sensors. The human had not looked at the animal. He had simply reached down, somehow knowing exactly where the animal's head was. And the animal had not moved or startled. It had expected the touch. There was something here that Circuit's programming could not quite categorize. Young Kelthos had been busy during these months. He had requested assignment to Trade Station Alpha specifically because he knew human traders would be arriving. Now he spent his off-duty hours observing every human-dog interaction he could find. He watched Kang Mira in the marketplace, saw how Max would gently press against her leg when the crowds got too large. He saw her breathing slow, her shoulders relax, her hand drop to touch the dog's head. The touch seemed automatic, unconscious, but it clearly had an effect. He watched Choi Doyun in the engineering bay, noticed how the human's productivity actually increased with the dog present, despite Circuit's skepticism. He saw Doyen talking to Luna during breaks, explaining his problems to an animal that couldn't possibly understand the technical details. Yet somehow the act of talking seemed to help the human solve those problems. He observed other humans too. Lee Hyun, a botanist, had a small mixed breed named Tofu, who sat in the hydroponics bay while Hyun worked with plants. Park Somi, a medical researcher, brought her beagle named Biscuit to the lab. The dog slept under her desk most of the day, but Somi's colleagues reported that she was noticeably less stressed than other researchers. Kelthos documented everything in his personal logs. He recorded videos, took notes, measured cortisol levels in humans when they were with and without their dogs. The data was fascinating, but what intrigued him most was the way the dogs behaved. They weren't servants or slaves. They weren't even really pets in the way other species kept small animals for amusement. The dogs seemed to have agency, personality, and purpose. Max knew when Mira needed him before she did. Luna anticipated Doyen's movements with uncanny accuracy. Tofu would bring specific tools to Hyun without being asked. Biscuit could sense when Somi was about to have a migraine and would alert her hours in advance. The dogs weren't just living with humans. They were working with them, communicating with them, understanding them in ways that even advanced species with translator technology couldn't quite manage. One evening, Kelthos found Kang Mira sitting alone in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Max lay beside her, his head resting on her lap. Kelthos approached carefully, not wanting to disturb them. "Trade specialist Kang," he said softly. "May I ask you something?" Mira turned, surprised to see a Vraxian approaching voluntarily. Most of them still avoided humans and their dogs. "Of course. Call me Mira." Kelthos settled onto the floor nearby, keeping a respectful distance. "I have been observing you and the other humans, studying your relationships with your dogs. I am trying to understand something that everyone else says is foolish." "What's that?" Mira asked, her hand gently stroking Max's ears. "Why you love them," Kelthos said simply. "Everyone says it is inefficient, illogical, primitive. But I watch you and I see something else. I see partnership, mutual care, something that exists between you that I have never seen between any other species." Mira smiled. It was the first time a non-human had asked this question with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. "Do you want to know the real answer?" "Please." "Dogs love us unconditionally," Mira said. "They don't care if we're successful or wealthy or important. Max doesn't know I'm a trade specialist. He doesn't care about my job title or my credentials. He loves me because I'm me, because I'm his person, and I love him the same way." "But he is not your species," Kelthos said, confused. "He cannot even speak your language." "He doesn't need to," Mira replied. "We understand each other in different ways. Max knows my moods better than most humans do. He knows when I need comfort or space or protection. And I know when he's happy or scared or needs something. We've been together for 8 years. We're family." Kelthos absorbed this. "Family," he repeated. "You consider the animal family. He's not an animal to me," Mira said firmly. "He's Max. He's my best friend. He's been with me through the hardest times of my life. When everyone else left, Max stayed. That means something. Kelthos looked at Max, who was watching him with calm brown eyes. The dog's tail wagged slightly. A small gesture that Kelthos had learned meant friendliness. Carefully, very carefully, Kelthos extended one clawed hand. "May I?" he asked. Mira's smile widened. "Max, say hi." Max lifted his head from Mira's lap and took 2 steps toward Kelthos. He sniffed the Vraxian's extended hand, his tail wagging faster. Then he sat down and leaned slightly forward. "He's giving you permission to pet him," Mira explained. "Just run your hand along his head and back gently." Kelthos touched Max's fur. It was softer than he expected, warm and thick. Max's tail wagged harder and the dog made a sound, a soft huff that seemed content. Kelthos felt something strange in his chest. Something warm. "Interesting," he whispered. "Most interesting indeed." The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Park Jiho stepped through, his polished black shoes clicking against the crystalline floor. Behind him, padding quietly on 4 legs, came Buddy. The golden retriever's tail wagged slowly as he took in the strange new environment, his nose twitching at 1,000 unfamiliar scents. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the entrance. Some were large and multifaceted like insect eyes. Others glowed with bioluminescence. A few were mounted on stalks that swiveled independently. All of them stared at the furry creature walking beside the human ambassador. Park Jiho had expected this reaction. He kept his expression neutral and professional as he walked toward the central platform. Buddy stayed close to his left side, just as they had practiced countless times back on Earth. The dog's ears were perked up, alert but calm. Commander Thelos of the Vraxian Empire was the first to speak. His scaled face twisted into what might have been confusion or disgust. The translator implant in Jiho's ear converted the clicking and hissing sounds into words. "Ambassador Park," Thelos said, his voice dripping with something that sounded like contempt. "What is that creature accompanying you?" Jiho stopped at the designated spot and placed his hand gently on Buddy's head. The dog sat immediately, his tongue lolling out in a happy expression. "This is Buddy, he's my dog. On Earth we call them companion animals." A ripple of noise spread through the chamber. The translator struggled to keep up with dozens of species all speaking at once. Jiho caught fragments. Predator, dangerous, illogical, primitive. The Supreme Chancellor, a floating jellyfish-like being named Orpheus, raised several tentacles for silence. "Ambassador Park, please explain this relationship." "Our preliminary data shows that this species, Canis familiaris, is descended from apex predators." "Why would you bring such a creature into your dwelling? Is it a prisoner? A slave?" Jiho had prepared for this question during the 6-month journey to the council station. He had rehearsed his answer dozens of times. Still, trying to explain the bond between humans and dogs to species who had never experienced it felt like trying to describe color to someone who had only ever seen in black and white. "Buddy is not a prisoner or a slave," Jiho began. "He's my friend, my companion. Humans and dogs have lived together for more than 30,000 years. We evolved alongside each other. They helped us hunt. They guarded our homes. They warned us of danger. In return, we gave them food, shelter, and care." A Chitauri representative resembling a mantis standing upright clicked her mandibles together. "This makes no economic sense. You provide resources to a creature that could be used for labor or food production. You gain nothing in return." "We gain companionship," Jiho said. He scratched behind Buddy's ears and the dog leaned into his touch, eyes half closing in contentment. "We gain loyalty, love, emotional support." "Emotional support?" Commander Thelos laughed, a harsh barking sound. "You mean to tell this council that humanity, a species seeking membership in the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, keeps dangerous predators in their homes for feelings?" Jiho felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you." More murmuring spread through the chamber. A Kryn delegate, its mechanical voice emotionless, spoke up. "We have analyzed this behavior. The resources allocated to maintaining these animals could support 0.3 additional human offspring per household. The time spent on their care reduces productive work hours by approximately 12% annually. This is grossly inefficient." "Not everything can be measured in efficiency," Jiho replied. "Dogs give us something that can't be quantified in numbers or resources. Then your species is more primitive than we estimated, Thalos said. He turned to address the other delegates. How can we trust the judgment of beings who willingly harbor predators in their homes? Who waste resources on creatures that provide no tangible benefit? This speaks to severe emotional instability. Several delegates gestured their agreement. Jiho felt frustration building in his chest, but before he could respond, Buddy stood up. The dog moved forward slightly, positioning himself between Jiho and the council members. His tail was still wagging, but his posture had changed. He was alert, protective. Supreme Chancellor Orpheus floated closer, his translucent body pulsing with blue light. The creature appears to be defending you, Ambassador. He is, Jiho said quietly. That's what I've been trying to explain. Dogs don't just live with us. They bond with us. They protect us. They sense our emotions and respond to them. Buddy knows I'm stressed right now, so he's trying to help. Fascinating, said a small voice. Jiho looked down to see a young Vraxian, barely larger than Buddy himself, peering around a pillar. What other behaviors does it exhibit? Many, Jiho said, grateful for the genuine curiosity. Buddy can understand dozens of human words. He knows when I'm sad and will come sit with me. He gets excited when I come home after being away. He plays games with me. He even saves me a spot on the couch when I'm making dinner. Commander Thalos snorted. This is absurd. We are wasting the Council's time with this discussion. I move that we table the human application for membership until they can demonstrate more rational decision-making capabilities. Seconded, the Chitauri representative said immediately. Supreme Chancellor, Orpheus was silent for a long moment. His tentacles swirled through the water-filled portion of the chamber. The Council will take the matter under advisement. Ambassador Park, you and your companion may return to your quarters. We will summon you when we have reached a decision. Jiho bowed respectfully. Thank you, Chancellor. He turned to leave, and Buddy immediately fell into step beside him. As they walked back toward the massive doors, Jiho could hear the delegates beginning to argue behind them. In the corridor outside, Jiho knelt down and wrapped his arms around Buddy's neck. The dog licked his face, tail wagging furiously. Good boy, Jiho whispered. They don't understand yet, but maybe someday they will. He stood and began walking toward the human quarters. Behind him, he didn't notice the young Vraxian slipping out of the chamber, his eyes fixed on the human and his dog with undisguised fascination. The young alien's name was Kelthos, and he had just witnessed something that would change his understanding of the universe. He had seen the way the human touched the predator with gentleness, the way the predator responded with what could only be called affection, the way they moved together like two parts of a single entity. Kelthos didn't know it yet, but he had just become the first alien to truly wonder if maybe, just maybe, the other species in the galaxy were missing something important, something that humans had discovered tens of thousands of years ago. As Jiho and Buddy disappeared around a corner, Kelthos made a decision. He would study these humans and their dogs. He would understand this bond that seemed so illogical to everyone else. He would learn what it meant to be someone's companion,